Greetings, friends of liberty. As my video title and my assumption of an American accent indicate, I, the Scarlet Pimpernel, shall return to the fray once more, now to take up the fight against a new and growing form of tyranny which finds itself amongst us. Which tyranny, you may ask? The tyranny of political correctness, which, in its many and subtle forms, is insinuating itself into the fabric of our institutions, and with its racism against whites and Asians, its sexism against males, and its bigotry of low expectation against blacks and Hispanics, threatens the very soul of America and the West, with its hatred of freedom, of happiness, and the sovereign individual. Now you might incidentally rightly wonder exactly how it is that I, a citizen of course of Georgian England, finds himself mastering the accents of our erstwhile colonials. Quite simply put, I'm here because of the good offices of a certain Doctor Who had the boldness to appear in person quite unannounced in the garden of my Blakeney estate one fine June morning in 1797. During this meeting, he offered to me the use of a tall blue box, which he labeled a TARDIS. Having, of course, never encountered such a device previously, I was advised that I, in a manner of speaking, should take it for a number of test runs, to which I agreed. Shall I relate the first of these test runs? Given the extraordinary range of history-changing options available, I decided to save the pregnant mother of Johannes Gutenberg, since, unbeknownst to you, my dear listeners, the first uncorrected run of historical reality actually resulted in her untimely demise in being trampled to death by a runaway ox on the streets of Mainz, Germany in 1399. Having thus entered the TARDIS, programmed it to Mainz 1399, I managed to delay Elsa's passage down Ottilienstrasse for about 5 minutes, with the expected result that this fatal accident was avoided and only a small dachshund, Otto, was trampled in her place. History will no doubt judge Otto's sacrifice leniently, since it meant that the Reformation and the printing press arrived many years earlier than they otherwise would have. Subsequent TARDIS excursions, some accompanied by my close friends Sir Anthony Dewhurst and Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, involved journeying to Imperial Japan, Soviet Russia, and Mao's China, countries of course previously unbeknownst to me, to investigate the conditions under which their tyranny rose, and thus allowing us to see the totality of those forces at work firsthand. I do feel my throat a bit parched. So to continue, it would then, after these varied labors, be profitable to share some of this specific understanding as applied to the phenomenon of political correctness in the United States in 2022, it being in North America, on which, of course, my latest mission must focus. Once, of course, I helped save the French, and now, too, I shall help save the Americans. In order to do this, please contemplate with me as I relate the following analogy. Imagine a town of many tens of thousands of inhabitants, beset by an arsonist whose fires afflicting the town and the surrounding forest cause both widespread property damage and death. The townspeople, however, having only experienced fires caused by natural causes and never man-made, believe that these fires too are caused by natural causes, such as lightning strikes and spontaneous overheating. So within this incorrect understanding, they mobilize all their efforts to fight the fires, to collect their dead and wounded, and to rebuild their community without, of course, realizing that above all, they need to locate the arsonist. Now, if we accept this analogy, what would we say of this town and of these townsfolk? We would say that, while on the one hand the townsfolk are admirably recognizing the danger of the fires and treating the results, On the other, they are not understanding the cause of the fires, which happens to be man-made. And this, of course, poses a big problem for them, since it means they cannot ultimately rid themselves of the cause, but only constantly treat the effects. Could it be, perchance, that with regard to political correctness, our movement is making the exact same error? That we are treating the effects and not the causes? And thus, that our relative ineffectiveness in fighting political correctness can be attributed perhaps to this reason? Interestingly, we presently among our movement have, just like this town, what you today call news reporters, analysts, and investigative journalists who are covering the crisis. These are, for us, among others, the Ben Shapiros, the Benjamin Boyces, the Dave Rubins, and from this precious stone set in the silver sea, the Sargon of Akkad's, Andrew Doyle's, Brendan O'Neill's, Ella Whelan's, and last but not least, those randy lads from trigonometry. From these, you term it here in the United States, Great White North, come the Jordan Petersons, Karen Straughns, and Kate McMillans. And even the antipodal regions of our globe have supplied some members, such as the Helen Dales, Claire Lehmans, and John Andersons. I do feel a bit scratchy. Secondly, we have, just like this town, the specialized thinkers, as we had in my day, the philosophers, scientists, and university lecturers, trying to deal with and understand the fires. These are, for us, among others, the James Lindsay, Peter Boghossian, and Helen Pluckroses of cynical theories, the God Sods of parasitic minds, yet again the Ben Shapiros of the authoritarian moment, the Heather McDonalds of the diversity delusion, the Abigail Schreiers of irreversible damage, the Douglas Murrays of the madness of crowds, and many, many others, all deepening our understanding of this ongoing sociological transformation. We have, thirdly and finally, the actual men and women in their businesses and professions, in their homes and schools and in their churches and clubs, on the street and in the pub, suffering in the crosshairs of this increasingly destructive societal change, just as this town's burn and arson victims suffer. These are, for us, among others, the Jody Shaws, forced to undergo PC training at Smith College, the James Essies, barred from counseling, the Count Dankulas, not for making a dad joke, which might be understandable, but a dog joke, the programmers, like James Demore, fired for telling the truth about gender differences, the sex researchers, like Deborah So, who see that their research will likely never be published, and so leave the field, the debaters, like Michael Moreno, who object to bias on the part of their instructors, the editors, like Barry Weiss, who object to the increasing intolerance of the newsroom, the actors, like Lawrence Fox, sanctioned for speaking the truth, the teachers, like Will Nolan from Eton, merely for facilitating a robust dialogue over the concept of toxic masculinity, the historians, like David Starkey, for one irascible comment, the political scientists, like Mike Adams, who took his life as a result of encounters with the politically correct, and many, many others, both known and unknown. Unfortunately, we are these townspeople. As noble and constructive as our efforts presently are in fighting the fires of political correctness, we as a movement, apart from a few rare individuals, are actually only treating the effects and have not, like these townspeople, identified the cause. In my next video, I shall do exactly that. Identify the actual cause of political correctness so that we as a movement can fight it directly instead of merely treating its symptoms as these townspeople are. Until then, I bid you well and remain the Scarlet Pimpernel.